crash course on the Anunnaki from the foremost expert, Our True History.
The Anunnaki's home planet is in our solar system. It's about 4 to 10 times the size of Earth, based off of the description of the Enuma Elish and other tablets. The Anunnaki came from just that planet. I know there are bad researchers out there that say they are also from different planets in other solar systems. There is zero evidence for this. The reason why they say that is because there's carvings of stars, and the bad researchers have assumed the Anunnaki were telling us they come from there. However, if you watch my amazing documentary called How Did the Anunnaki Know About Our Solar System, I show their planet came from another solar system 4.5 billion years ago. So if they are carving another solar system, then it might be showing their planet originated from there. I show evidence in that documentary. The planet called Nibiru has an orbit that takes 3,600 years to go to the outer solar system and then back round in between Jupiter and Mars. When their planet first entered our solar system, it smashed into a planet called Tiamat that broke up and became Earth and the asteroid belt. The planet it smashed into, called Tiamat, also had a moon called Kingu, and Kingu ended up becoming our moon. The Anunnaki are not reptilian. The reason why a few bad researchers say they are is because they have seen these small statues and believe they are reptilian Anunnaki. However, there are only 2 of these squashed clay figures compared to the thousands, if not tens of thousands, of carvings showing what they really look like, which is us. They look like us because we were created in their image, in their likeness, as it says in Genesis 1:26, and also in the 14 tablets in Columbia University that are owned by the Rothschilds. The Anunnaki's race name is actually gods. There is a huge amount of evidence for this. Please visit www.ourtruehistory.co.uk and scroll down on the homepage to where it says click here. You can see all the evidence there. Here is a small part of that video showing the Anunnaki were called gods. There was 900 Anunnaki originally came down. Anunnaki wasn't the actual original name for the race. I believe the race name is gods, or God, just like humans. And obviously it was down the line, it was translated into Elohim, and obviously we all praise gods, but people would praise humans if we went to their planet and created workers. When you break down the word Anunnaki, it actually does end up with the word Kai, which is the last word, being earth, and Kai is an actual name for earth back from them days. So it makes sense that the actual breakdown, which is how Zechariah Sitchin did it, Anunnaki, those that came from heaven, to earth, ki being earth.
JKI, place. Today's word is ki, which means place. It can also mean ground or earth, and is a term for the netherworld. Ki is also used as a determinative indicating something is the name of a place, but instead of being put before the place name, as is usual for determinatives, it's put after the place name. Lagash Kai, for example, to talk about the city of Lagash. You will find that everywhere except that Kai is the meaning of earth. There is nowhere that says Ki means princely seeds or royal blood or anything that Dr. Michael S. Heiser said it does.
The name Anunnaki roughly translates to those from heaven came to earth, and that's a team name for the older gods that were here on earth. The younger gods were called the Ajiji, meaning watchers or eye in the sky. They were called that because they were the ones that were on Mars as an away station, waiting for their planet to come near. Some really bad researchers have said the Igigi were created by the Anunnaki, gods, and were slaves to the Anunnaki. That's because they didn't research properly and read this part of the text in the tablets called Artrahasis. Tablet 1. The great Anunnaki made the Igigi. It does seem they made them, however the line under it says, carry the workload sevenfold. So when you read it properly, it says this: the great Anunnaki made the Igigi carry the workload sevenfold. The documentary I mentioned before on my website has the full evidence the Igigi were the sons of gods. You might know them in the Bible as the sons of God that took wives. Heaven is space. Yes, in the Bible, as well as in the ancient texts, it talks about we can see the sun, the stars, and the moon in heaven. That means we can see heaven. Of course we can't see heaven. So where do you think the sun, the moon, and the stars are? In space. So when next time you read either the Bible or any of the ancient texts, when they're talking about going up into heaven in their chariots, yes, they're going up in spaceships. Because Nibiru smashed into Tiamat and that created Earth, Nibiru had life on that planet and seeded Tiamat, which became Earth. This means we got life from Nibiru to start all life here on Earth. The Anunnaki came to Earth because they had issues with their atmosphere. They believed that sprinkling gold particles in the atmosphere would help it repair. Their planet had a very small amount of gold. They tried mining the asteroid belt but lost 2 spaceships. There was a fight for rulership on Nibiru about 460,000 years ago, and their loser, called Alula, lost and fled in a ship to Earth. He found gold and told the others via some type of radio.
The reverse side of Moorhen Collection Akkadian Tablet MC2894A. Alalu set his course for snowy Earth, but kept his destination a secret. Alalu went to off-limits places. No one had been there before, and no one at the Hammered Bracelet had tried to cross there.
This is the description of what it was like on their planet while the hole in their atmosphere was there.
There was less joy in the land. The rain stopped, and the winds got more robust. The amount of gas that volcanoes blew out didn't get worse, and the hole in the atmosphere didn't get fixed. Nibiru's circuits kept going around in the sky. It got harder to handle the heat and cold from circuit to circuit.
The first 50 Anunnaki came to Earth and set up a base. They called that place Eridu. Archaeologists agree that the oldest structures and location anywhere is in Eridu. The Anunnaki gods were 8 to 12 foot tall. They ended up mining in South Africa. We have evidence of ancient gold mines there. There are older mines in Africa that have been covered over with sand, mud, silt, and sediment from the Great Flood. To see the evidence and everything you need to know about the Great Flood, visit my website and search for the Great Flood. But the work was hard for the Ajiji, the younger gods, and they demanded help. The main Anunnaki were Enki and his half-brother Enlil. They were in charge. Enlil, although younger, was the main leader. They were sons of King Anu. King Anu mostly stayed on their planet Nibiru. This means Enki and Enlil were princes. Enki, one of the 2 princes, said he would create a new upgraded version of a creature here on Earth, Neanderthal. Enki did this. Read the translations called Enki and Nimna. And the first Homo sapien was born. The Anunnaki then created 7 more males and 7 females to breed. They were dark-skinned and was put to work in the mines in South Africa. They called that the Abzu. This happened around 300,000 years ago. The Homo sapiens couldn't talk, but they just about understood commands. These were the first Homo sapiens on Earth, and they were called Adamu. Do not confuse Adamu with Adam and Eve. I'll get to them later. Adamu means father of mankind, or humanity or mankind. Many people attach Adamu with Adam. You'll see later why that's wrong. Because of the long orbit of their planet, 1 day on their planet is 30 days here on Earth. This means they would live for over 500,000 years here on Earth. They would seem immortal to us. 200,000 years after creating Homo sapiens, the Anunnaki started to breed with the Homo sapiens. They had children and they were called demigods. Half Anunnaki and half human. Demigods. The first children born to an Anunnaki were 2 children we know as Adam and Eve. This is because the Prince Enki bred with 2 Homo sapien females, which he then called them Dawn and Dusk. The time of day they gave birth the boy and girl. Adam and Eve proper names are Adapa and Titi. If you want to see the full evidence of this, visit my website. These new Homo sapiens could speak and were smarter than the Homo sapiens. Enki put his new children on his orbiting spaceship for the first 24 years of their life. If you want to see evidence of this, visit my website and search Adam and Eve. The garden was on the spaceship, and another Anunnaki didn't like the fact their god's bloodline has been tainted by Enki having human children. So he told Adam and Eve to eat a fruit from a tree that Enki had already told them not to.
Some of the children had gigantism, which means they were even bigger than the Anunnaki parent, who was about 8 to 12 foot tall. Those children who had gigantism were called the Nephilim.
This religious site says this about the Nephilim. I'll explain more after. The Nephilim, the product of the sons of God mingling with the daughters of Adam, the great biblical giants, the fallen ones, the Rephaim, the dead ones. These descriptions are all applied to one group of characters found within the Hebrew Bible. Who are the Nephilim? From where do the heroes of old, the men of renown, come? The problem with the religious view is that they have mixed up Adamu and Adam. It's possible that the Nephilim were from Homo sapien, Adamu, or from Homo sapien sapien, because the Anunnaki bred with the Homo sapiens to give birth to Homo sapien sapien, but then they also bred with Homo sapien sapien. The reason why religious people say they are the product of the sons of God and not God is because the Igigi, remember the younger gods, were the ones that came down and stole human women. The Igigi, watchers, were then called the fallen angels. They were outcast for a period of time, and those Igigi that had kids allowed their giant children to eat everything, including other humans.
Because their planet was not near Earth, you can probably guess they were pale-skinned. This is said many times in ancient texts because their offspring with humans were pale, blue-eyed and white hair. Noah was also a direct child from Enki and a Homo sapien woman called Banash. That's why Enki wanted to save Noah. That's why Noah had blonde hair, blue eyes, pale skin, compared to Lamech, who was Banash's husband. He was dark-skinned.
You can see all of the evidence of this on my documentary called The Great Flood.
Please see my video. It's free to watch. Search Great Flood on ourtruehistory.co.uk. Some people have made a big thing about the Anunnaki holding bags and carvings. Sadly, they didn't bother to research. The bags are just leather bags. Not only do they tell us they had bags in text, there's also one in the Cairo Museum. None of the carvings of the Anunnaki gods show pockets, so there's no mystery. They just needed bags. The women Anunnaki, or goddesses, were never in charge the same way men were. They were still respected, but never abused. They were never told to wear any clothes they didn't want to. They had no face coverings, unless it was hot and it was their choice.
Inanna became an exception to women in charge. She was a descendant from the bloodline of Enlil. She rose to power because of her beauty and cunning skills. In the end, she was feared as the goddess of sex and war. You may have noticed the Anunnaki have many different names. That's because they lived so long on Earth they could change their name, but also because in different places they were known as different names. Inanna is the ancient Sumerian goddess of love, sensuality, fertility, procreation, and also of war. She later became identified by the Akkadians and Assyrians as the goddess Ishtar, and further with the Hittite Sauska, the Phoenician Astarte, and the Greek Aphrodite, among many others. You'll see the Anunnaki posed for the statues and carvings. You've seen Inanna standing on lions. In India she was known as Kali, with the same type of pose. You might notice in some places they are coloured blue. That simply means sky gods. The reason we see the gods with wings is again showing sky gods when there was no colour added. If you would like to see the world's best Anunnaki family tree, with many of the names added from what they were called, simply visit my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk. Unsolved.co.uk.
The men Anunnaki, they had long hair, allowed it to grow. They would put it in a turban or sometimes under a hat. They also grew beards. Beards appeared to be a status symbol. In their beards, they would braid lapis lazuli, which is a gemstone. The Anunnaki loved lapis lazuli, so much so the other brother, called Enlil, had a lapis lazuli throne made for him. Enlil was the main god on earth. In fact, the Bible even tells us that god had a lapis lazuli throne. I can't imagine an almighty deity needing to sit down, but in the Bible, God sits down 20 times. Of course, the Bible is a copy of the Anunnaki text. Visit my website and scroll down to where it says, click here in big blue letters. I mentioned before that Noah was Enki's son. Noah's original name was Ziusudra. We know this because we actually have the original tablet in the British Museum, and that tablets tells us that Enki gave instructions to Ziusudra to be a conical boat, not a long boat. It was like a partly squashed football. The boat didn't have to do anything other than survive the tsunami. I'll explain about that soon. The tablet even tells the size of the ark and what wood it needs to be made from. The head curator of the British Museum has gave a lecture on it. You can find this on YouTube. Search Irvin Finkel, Noah's Ark. Before I carry on, I thought I'd let you know that although I'm talking about the Anunnaki in this video, I actually have researched so much more and have solved so many unanswered mysteries, if I may just tell you some of them. Have connected the Book of Enoch, ancient stone tablets, to Stonehenge. I have shown who made and what the carvings of what looks like a helicopter and spacecrafts in Abydos, Egypt, are. I have given the answer to who was at Atlantis, when and what happened to it. I have given the only decent explanation on why the Nazca 28-kilometre mountain range had the top sliced off. I've explained the reason for the granite boxes in the pyramids. I've created a 23-minute documentary using evidence on who the father of Jesus would have been. I believe I've worked out how and why we have elongated skulls in ancient times that were not head-bound. I am the person that worked out the 10 plagues of Egypt actually started in Israel. Göbekli Tepe, I have explained what it was for and who made it. I have made the best documentary on mermaids. I have shown who Lucifer was. I have shown who Satan was. I have put out the evidence that Jesus' father was not who you think he was. I even show the Bible named him over and over. I have gave details on why and when Easter Island had the statues. It's not when you think. I have shown evidence where the crystal skulls are not debunked. I even show evidence that the people that debunked it are not telling the whole truth. I have shown Adam and Eve were on a spaceship for the first 24 years of their life. And much more, all with evidence. The Anunnaki ate the same foods as us. They ate fish, wild animals, and even bugs. They would heat their meat up. They brought down from their planet sheep, goats, and even barley. They drank wine and beer. You're wondering, did we learn how to make beer from the Anunnaki? Yes, here's a direct translation from a tablet. Inanna and Enki, Seawall 1.3.1. So it came about that Enki and Inanna were drinking beer together in the Abzu and enjoying the taste of sweet wine. The bronze agar vessels were filled to the brim, and the two of them started a competition, drinking from the bronze vessels of Urash. As you can see, they were drinking beer and wine before we were even created. They played games. They laughed, loved, had anger and hate. They had the 7 deadly sins. They cried. They even cried when the earth was flooded over and humans were dying. I'll get to the flood soon. The women Anunnaki wore makeup. The men and women had jewellery, mostly gemstones. There may be a reason why so much gemstones were used. Gemstones appear to have healing properties. Maybe the Anunnaki knew this. The Anunnaki should have slept for 30 days and nights, because that's how long they would need to sleep, but they managed to stay awake 7 days and nights, then sleep 7 days and nights. This affected their health. In the tablets in Columbia University, the Anunnaki spoke about the creatures here on Earth, Neanderthals, and said they think that's what they were like. This means they know evolution and didn't believe they were created. However, they do mention the creator of everything. However, I have worked out the name that the Anunnaki gave to the creator of everything. Yep, visit my website. The Anunnaki never asked humans to sacrifice themselves. Way later, when humans were having trouble with crops, they would ask the gods for help. But the Anunnaki gods couldn't make rain, so they humans thought the gods were upset with them. They started to sacrifice animals, but that didn't work, and humans killed other humans in the hope that one of the many gods would help them. The Anunnaki never had a religion. People worshipped a god that was in control of that area. For example, Marduk was the god of Babylon, and anyone in that area worshipped him, regardless if they liked him. Think of being forced to worship. That's not a religion, that's control. The Anunnaki kept tight control over the humans. The Tower of Babel was a tower Marduk was making using humans. Enlil didn't like a tower that would be bigger than his, so Enlil got it shot down by Ninurta in his chariot. Yes, they called some of their craft chariots. Enlil then forced people to learn new languages, so they couldn't all work together to help Marduk again. The Great Flood. Here's a clip from my 1-hour documentary on the Great Flood. You can see the full documentary on my website.
And in Gilgamesh, to anticipate what I'm going to say by the end of the talk, the flood is bound up with knowledge.
I disagree. I think Noah tells Gilgamesh that the gods are an alien race. We know that Gilgamesh's mother is an Anunnaki. It says it in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Of course, a museum can't say the word aliens, so they have to say something else. But Noah would have met all the Anunnaki on the top of the mountain where the boat rested.
Here's a few versions of what happened the day of the flood. The Anunnaki allowed an ice shelf to break off Antarctica because they believed in destiny. Their planet Nibiru was due to come around, but this time its orbit and Earth's would be close. So close that Nibiru's size would shake the foundations of Earth. The Anunnaki knew this would have happened regardless if the humans were on Earth, so they allowed it.
At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, there rose on the horizon a dark cloud of black, and bellowing within it was Adad, the storm god. The Anunnaki, remember the important gods, carried torches of fire, scorching the country with brilliant flashes. The stillness of the storm god passed over the sky, and all that was bright turned into darkness. For a day, the gales flattened the country. Quickly they blew, and then came the deluge. Even the gods took fright at the deluge. They left and went up to the heaven of Anu, lying like dogs curled up in the open. Sweet-voiced Belet Ili wailed, "The olden times have turned to clay." It's a complete reversion, right? Humans come from clay, and they've been returned to clay. Because I spoke evil in the God's assembly. How could I speak evil in the God's assembly and declare a war to kill my people? It is I who gave birth. Those people are mine. And now, like fish, they fill the ocean. For 6 days and 7 nights, there blew the wind, the downpour, the gale, the deluge. It flattened the land. But the 7th day when it came, the gale relented. The deluge ended. The ocean that had thrashed like a woman in labor grew calm. The tempest grew still. The deluge ended. I looked at the weather, says Utnapishtim. It's hard to remember he's speaking, right? It's all first-person narrative. I looked at the weather. It was quiet and still, but all the people had turned to clay.
This is translations that you can read in a book called Myths from Mesopotamia. We, the great Anunna, all of us agreed together on a plan. Anu and Adad were to guard above, I was to guard the earth below. Where you went, you were to undo the chain and set us free. You were to release produce for the people. You were to exercise control by holding the balance The warrior Elil, L gap of 30 lines. Vn, you imposed your loads on man. You bestowed noise on mankind. You slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. You must, and create a flood. It is indeed your power that shall be used against your people. You agreed to the wrong plan. Have it reversed. Let us make far-sighted Enki swear, an oath. Enki made his voice heard Atrahasis III, and spoke to his brother gods, why should you make me swear an oath? Why should I use my power against my people? The flood that you mentioned to Mehmet. What is it? I don't even know. Could I give birth to a flood? That is Elil's kind of work. Let him choose. Let Shulat and Hanish march ahead. Let Eriko pull out the mooring poles. Let Ninurta march. Let him make the weirs overflow. Gap of 2 or 3 lines to end of column. VM, gap of 31 lines. OBV, I the assembly, do not listen to. The gods gave an explicit command. Elil performed a bad deed to the people. Catch ink, Atrahasis, made his voice heard and spoke to his master. Tablet ill, gap of about 10 lines. Atrahasis made his voice heard and spoke to his master. Indicate to me the meaning of the dream. J, let me find out its portent. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to his servant. You say, I should find out in bed. 36. Make sure you attend to the message I shall tell you. Wall, listen constantly to me. Read Hut, make sure you attend to all my words. Dismantle the house, build a boat.
You can see the full documentary on my website. I have created a timeline that you can get to on my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk. The timeline doesn't use mainstream's timeframes because they are wrong. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I show mainstream admitting their dates are wrong on so many things. For crying out loud, they even have the dates of the mummies wrong in Egypt. They have now pushed them back a whopping 1,000 years. So if you are interested in the world's best, more correct timeline of a vast number of events in our past, you should really check it out.
You could be thinking, hang on a minute. What if these ancient texts are wrong? What if it was a lucky guess that they talked about genetics and creating species? What if they made up the planets and by luck they were right? Well, I have covered this in a 3-hour documentary I made called The Lost Book of Our True History. Here is a snippet of that video.
We need to look at whether or not they are actually real characters. It's all well and good saying that they're son of kings and this, that and the other. There's some people out there that believe that the texts are just a comic book. In other words, if in 100 years' time or 1,000 years' time someone looked back and found Harry Potter, would they believe that Harry Potter books actually meant that there was someone alive at that point? So we need to now rule out that they're actually not just comic book characters, but they are actually real. So here we've got Stanford Library's website, and it shows you here there are far more tablets in existence than I could have imagined. This is a person writing this for Stanford University. In fact, between 500,000 and 2 million cuneiform tablets are estimated to have been excavated in modern times by the Anunnaki. So then you've got to ask yourself, okay, well, is there any evidence that other than just texts that Enki and Enlil were alive? So here is the British Museum, and they actually have cylinder seals where they've, again, these are images, which I'll just show you here, images of various people, Enlil, Enki, and so on. And over here on the left-hand side, it says named on the inscription, Enki. So let's just go through some of these, there's loads. And another one here, another cylinder seal, and lo and behold, it's got Enki. And again, Enki, and another cylinder seal. So let's just say if this was a storybook that was written over 3,000 years up and down the whole of the Middle East, by people that probably couldn't read or write, there was only a handful of people that could read or write back then. So for them to write about Enki and then get people to carve these tiny, this is only about 1 inch or 2, this cylinder seal. And obviously this is what a tablet would look like. And again, this one's talking about, wait for it, Enki. Another one, you get the idea. Now, this is an actual carving of Enki. So you'll see the turban-style hat that he wore, so you can differentiate between Enlil, King Anu. So this is Enki with his long beard, and the bits in there are lapis lazuli. So they did themselves up with little bits of lapis lazuli to give it a braided appearance. But when they first came here, they had long hair and didn't braid it until they got here. And there's another carving of Enki, again genuine. Now this one's Enlil, talking about Enlil, this tablet. So obviously the brothers, there has to be Enlil as well. And here's Enki again. This one's in a museum. So this is an actual carving of Enki again. You can tell by the turban style hat. A project that was funded by the European Union. So this is looking at basically Enki's and Enlil's and whatever happened back in the Middle East. So this project looks at the temple. There was a temple that was made for Enki and one for Enlil. Both of them got unfortunately destroyed. You know, this whole project that they're doing for the European Union, would they, if they thought this was any way remotely to do with a storybook, would they spend so much time on writing about the size of the actual temple? The temple was rectangle, measuring 41 metres long by 23 metres, in a single structure composed of a courtyard, sanctuary and 19 rooms and narrow chambers.
You can see the full 3-hour video from my website. Ask yourself this question: if we never had the Bible, never had any ancient tablets, never had any ancient mysteries like the pyramids, would we have made up a story about gods? No, we would have no reference for a god. None. We certainly wouldn't have pretended a god created us, and then made temples for a fake entity. I say this because around the world, there are cultures that talk about gods. Did they make them up? No. We know the Anunnaki traveled around the world, and that's why we have many places that talk about gods from the sky or heaven. Remember, heaven is space. Here are just some of them: Sumerian Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Norse, Hindu, Chinese, Mayan, Incan, Aztec, Polynesian, including Maori, Japanese, Shinto. I have already covered and solved the Norse gods in a deep dive video documentary, where I prove with evidence who some of the Norse gods were as Anunnaki. Over time, I'll be doing deep dive videos on the Greeks, Roman, Indian, Chinese, Mayan, and Egyptian. These videos will one show with evidence who the gods were as Anunnaki. Follow me or subscribe to keep up to date.
Did you know the Anunnaki were the first to show mermaids in carvings? In fact, a mermaid is not half human, it's half Anunnaki and half fish. If you want to find out more about this. Yes, you know I've already done a long video covering the evidence for this. The Nazca lines are from the Anunnaki. They were there mining for gold. This was after the flood. The actual mountain range that has the top completely sliced off is roughly 3.7 miles, 6 kilometers. The holes that are on the top are from the machine they used. There is gold in Nazca. The Great Flood, tsunami, broke part of the mountain off which revealed the gold. Don't hate me for saying this next part. I'm really proud of my research. But yes, I'm the only one to work all these things out, and you can see the evidence in my videos. Göbekli Tepe was a silo for grain and animals, built with a roof on the top that got smashed off when the tsunami covered the land. No, Göbekli Tepe was not covered over deliberately by anyone. It was covered just like the buildings in the Middle East that are only just being uncovered now. Because of the Great Flood, remember to go watch my documentary on the Great Flood. I'm going to look at some of the main gods. The first one is Inanna, daughter of Nanna and Ningal, granddaughter of Enlil. Her story is well worth knowing. Inanna, also known as Ishtar in Akkadian, was a prominent goddess associated with love, beauty, sex, fertility, war, justice, and political power. One of the most captivating stories about Inanna revolves around her relationship with Dumuzi, also known as Tammuz, her beloved. Dumuzi was a shepherd god and represented the force of life and fertility. Here is the actual Anunnaki language. Yes, you will now hear the alien language. We know this, because what you are about to hear is a love poem in Inanna's own words, the person talking. I hope you enjoyed this video. The extended version is on patreon.com. Search Our True History. Remember, you can see all the other documentaries also. Just visit ourtruehistory.co.uk. Thank you for watching.